What you are about to hear is not casual advice from the lips of the idle. It is a shift in the very gears of your soul. It is a recalibration of how you walk, how you speak, how you think, and how you act. It is a transition from the caste of ignorance to the sovereignty of the self. Let me tell you a truth that most men never grasp until their furnace has gone cold and their energy is spent. Your life bends to your industrial assumptions. The way you expect the market to move, the way you expect your labor to be rewarded is precisely the way it usually goes. This is not the work of fate. Fate is the hollow excuse of the weak who refuse to man the controls. This is the work of focus. Your dominant thoughts are like magnetic rails. They pull circumstances into alignment. They shape the rhythm of your hands, the authority of your voice, and the iron of your persistence. So I ask you, what if you assumed, right now, that every gear in the universe is turning in your favor? Even when the coal is low, even when the mill is silent, even when the critics are howling at your gates like hungry wolves. What if you lived as if the outcome was an industrial inevitable, as if the bridge was already built, as if the steel was already poured, and all you had to do was drive the locomotive across? This is not wishful thinking. Riches do not respond to wishes, they respond to the law. This is mental engineering. It is how the titans of my era rose through the thick smoke of failure, the blistering heat of criticism, and the frost of fear. Henry Ford did not hope the automobile would succeed. He decided it would. He poured his belief into the unknown before the world even knew there was a road to drive upon. When they called his vision a fantasy, he built factories. When the banks doubted him, he strengthened his resolve. He operated from the absolute assumption of triumph. Thomas Edison did not calculate his failure after the 1,000th prototype. He assumed success was a mathematical certainty, a law of nature waiting to be revealed. He did not need to see the light with his physical eyes. He carried the illumination in the laboratory of his mind and acted as if the darkness had already been conquered. Charles Schwab did not move from fear. He moved from a faith so massive that it shaped the very molecules of the steel industry. His certainty was a contagion. His belief acted as a law that other men were compelled to follow. He understood that the world is a mirror, and if you stand before it with the posture of a master, the world will eventually reflect your mastery back to you. And I, Andrew Carnegie, I did not ask, what if the Bessemer process fails? I moved as if the rails already united the continent from sea to shining sea. I saw the bridges before the iron was mined. I saw the libraries before the first stone was laid. That is the energy that builds legacies. So I ask you, why not you? Why not today? Why not this very hour? You have spent enough time in the cradle of hesitation. You have spent enough hours telling yourself stories rooted in the dross of fear. It is time to refine the script. It is time to blow the oxygen of will through the furnace of your mind and burn away the impurities of doubt. The version of you that overthinks, the version that shrinks when the world gets loud, that man cannot share a desk with the Titan. One must die so the other may reign. Today I hand you a new frame, a new filter, a new standard. Act as if everything always works out, not because it is guaranteed by luck, but because your assumption makes you unstoppable. When you assume success is inevitable, you move with the posture of an owner. You speak with the clarity of a commander. You govern your life instead of negotiating with your obstacles. Most men negotiate with their fears. The Titan issues decrees to them. This discourse is your industrial reset. It is to be repeated, not once, but daily, until your subconscious accepts this certainty as law, until doubt withers in the presence of your calm. Fear cannot live where the gospel of faith is present. Fear is a shadow, and shadows cannot exist where the fire of purpose is burning bright. The moment you align your spirit with the assumption that the outcome is secured, you destroy the internal saboteur. Listen with intensity. Let these truths enter your nervous system like high-grade fuel. What we do here is not motivation, it is the reconstruction of the self. By the end of this hour, you will not think the same, you will not move the same, you will not be the same. Let us begin with a question that has the power to rebuild your empire from the ashes. What if all of it, every setback, every delay, every moment of chilling silence, is actually building the exact version of you required for the wealth you seek? Most men do not live in that possibility. They live in a psychology of the deficit. They wake up bracing for the next blow. They talk of worst-case scenarios as if they were prophets of ruin. They wait for the bottom to fall out, even while they are rising toward the sun. Because of that expectation, they unconsciously direct their steam towards what they dread. But there is another way, a way that doesn't require hype or hollow shouting, a way that asks only one thing: to believe before you see. Belief is not a reaction to the market. Belief is an industrial choice. It is the primary resource of the producer, and that choice directs the energy of your mind. The subconscious mind does not argue with the master. It is a faithful clerk, a tireless bookkeeper. It accepts what you feed it, and then it builds the ledger of your life around that assumption. If you say, "Things never work for me," your subconscious says, "Understood," and it begins filtering your world through the lens of failure. It looks for the leak in the pipe. It looks for the crack in the foundation. That is what you start to notice. That is what you start to expect. That is what you attract. Not because of magic, but because you have blinded yourself to the industrial inevitability of success. Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine waking up, no matter the debt, no matter the betrayal, with this quiet command running in the background of your mind like a perfectly oiled machine. Everything is working for my advancement. Even if the path is not clear, you move like it is happening. You execute like the doors are already swinging open. You build like the foundation is solid rock. That belief alone, practiced with the regularity of a morning whistle, will rewire your entire life. When you assume the universe is your partner, you become calmer under pressure. You become more patient in the waiting. You move with power even when the evidence is missing. This is not delusion. This is the sovereignty of the self. I have not failed. I have simply found 10,000 ways that will not work. That is the mindset of a man who assumed the result was already his. He didn't ask, "What if this never happens?" He asked, "What is the next logical step toward my aim?" That is the difference between the man who folds after 3 setbacks and the one who becomes a legend in the history books. The weak wait for proof. They are the consumers of certainty. The powerful move as if the proof is a historical fact already recorded. This mindset removes the need for external validation. It replaces panic with posture. It installs a new belief system. The outcome is certain. I simply have not arrived at the station yet. So I ask you again, what if the delay was divine? What if the struggle was the exact detour required to introduce you to your other self, the titan who knows no fear? Once you install that assumption, once it becomes your default, you no longer fear the unknown. You welcome it. The unknown is not the enemy, it is the raw material, the ore in the ground, the laboratory where your future is being synthesized. Your only job is to keep the engine moving, to build when it is boring, to lead when no one is clapping, to act like the outcome is locked in, even if the scoreboard says you are losing. The scoreboard does not measure your spirit. It does not track your faith. It does not see what is building behind the curtain of the material world. Only you know that. Only you can man the controls of that internal mill. Say it to yourself now. I live as if everything is working for me. I do not panic, I prepare. I do not beg for signs, I build in silence. I will not fold because I have already decided the ending. This is mental warfare. It is the choice to walk through chaos with order in your mind. Once you decide how this ends, you no longer need to flinch at the middle. Act as if everything works out, and soon the world will have no choice but to mirror your mind. There is one quality above all others that separates the drifter from the builder. It is definiteness of purpose, a clear, unwavering, unshakable aim, a target burned so deeply into the subconscious that it becomes the only reality. Without purpose, your energy scatters like steam in the wind. Your hours are stolen by the trivial and the mediocre. You mistake movement for momentum, but when you become a man with a definite aim, your path narrows like the rails of the Pennsylvania line. Your vision sharpens. You stop wondering what the day will bring, and you start commanding the day to deliver what you have already decided. That is power. That is the beginning of the gospel of success. Most men are like ships without rudders, at the mercy of every wind of opinion and every current of circumstance. They drift into the rocks and wonder why life has treated them so harshly. But the man with a definite purpose is a steamship. He has his own power. He cuts through the waves. He knows his destination, and the ocean itself seems to yield to his progress. I have seen men of great talent fail because they lacked a singular focus. They were jacks of all trades and masters of none. They scattered their fire and produced no heat. But I have seen men of average ability achieve wonders because they focused their entire being upon one aim. They put all their eggs in one basket, and then they watched that basket with the eyes of a hawk. In the quiet of this night, you must decide what is your basket. What is the one result that your life demands? Do not give me a list of vague wishes. Riches are not attracted to maybe. They are attracted to definiteness. They are attracted to the man who knows what he wants and has decided that he will not be denied. Once you have that purpose, you must nourish it with the assumption of success. You must see it as a finished product. If you are building a business, see the smoke rising from the stacks. If you are building a fortune, see the numbers in the ledger. If you are building a character, see yourself standing unmoved in the center of the storm. The subconscious mind is the most powerful tool in the industrial world, but it requires a blueprint. It will not build a palace if you give it the plans for a shack, and it will not build a fortune if you give it the plans of a pauper. You must provide the industrial assumption that the work is already done. Tonight, as you drift toward the realm of sleep, let these words be the final thoughts that occupy your mind. Do not think of the deaths. Do not think of the critics. Do not think of the how. Think only of the result. See the outcome as a settled account. You are the master of your own mental economy. You are the architect of your own fate. The furnace is hot, the steel is ready, and the rails are laid. Walk with the certainty of a titan. Act as if everything always works out, and the universe will have no choice but to obey your command.
Faith is not a vapor that descends from the heavens upon the lucky few. It is not a gift granted by chance to the idle. It is not the result of hollow hope or the wishing of the weak. Faith, in the Carnegie doctrine, is a refined product. It is a structure constructed within the soul, built with the same precision and the same unwavering discipline as a bridge of iron spanning a great river. It is built brick by brick, act by act, thought by thought, until you stand in the center of a mental fortification so strong, so stable, and so dense that even your deepest doubts must bow before its presence. Let me tell you a truth that most men, those who labor in the valleys of mediocrity, will never understand. Faith is not an emotion, it is an industrial habit. It is the byproduct of consistent, disciplined belief, spoken aloud, written down in the ledger of the heart, and acted upon until your subconscious mind accepts it as a physical fact. You do not find faith, you forge it. You train it like a master craftsman trains his apprentice. You rehearse it in the quiet hours of the night until it no longer requires external evidence because your conviction has become the evidence. The mind of the drifter is a chaotic workshop. It believes whatever the news of the day tells it to believe. It reacts to the rumors of the market and the whispers of the neighbor. But the mind of the Titan is a controlled laboratory. The mind does not believe what is true in the world of appearances, it believes what is repeated. That is why so many men believe in failure, poverty, and limitation, because they have practiced those thoughts. They have rehearsed the script of the struggle daily. They have spoken of doubt over their morning tea. They have imagined disaster in vivid detail before they close their eyes. They have aligned their actions with fear and then wondered why the gospel of success has not arrived at their door. Let me be clear as the ring of a hammer on an anvil. You cannot rehearse weakness and expect strength to manifest in your results. You cannot marinate your mind in the dross of hesitation and expect the pure steel of certainty to grow. Faith, like a muscle, is earned through the resistance of the world. It is built by applying the pressure of your will against your own comfort. Every time you follow through on a command you gave yourself, especially when the coal is low and your spirit is weary, you earn a greater measure of it. This is why autosuggestion is not a game for the whimsical, it is the gateway to empire. It is the act of deliberately, almost violently feeding the mind the identity you have chosen for yourself. Not the one the world handed you, not the one the critics labeled you with, but the one you designed in the blueprint room of your soul. That is why I do not tell you to casually listen to these words and hope for a change. I tell you to repeat them, study them as if they were the secret codes to a bank vault. Speak them back to the silence of your chamber. Because when you do, when you make your inner voice louder than the external noise, something extraordinary happens in the mechanics of your being. You start to believe yourself. That is the root of all personal power. To know that when you issue a command, your subconscious is listening with the obedience of a loyal clerk. You must begin each day with a decree, not a question. You must wake up and speak the script of the man you are becoming, not because it sounds pleasant, but because you know you are carving new grooves in the record of your subconscious. Those grooves will become the rails upon which your feet must walk.
Thomas Edison did not succeed because he felt a sudden flash of inspiration one Tuesday afternoon. He succeeded because his assumption of the outcome was greater than any single failure. 10,000 times he tried. 10,000 times he found a way that did not work, but he never called them failures. Why? Because his faith was anchored in the result. He had already seen the light illuminating the world before he ever stepped into his laboratory.
Every act of effort, every moment of profound fatigue, every time he reset his tools and started again, was simply another layer of belief being added to the structure. John D. Rockefeller did not rise to the summit of wealth by luck or by the rolling of the dice. He trained his thinking like a general trains an army for total war. He believed in systems, in structure, and in the certainty of the law. That certainty came from mental rehearsal. He built his wealth in the high-heat furnace of his mind before he ever poured the first drop of oil in the world of matter. You must do the same. You must see yourself follow through. You must imagine yourself moving with the posture of a man who cannot be bought and cannot be broken. You must speak to yourself like a commander giving orders to a disciplined battalion, with calm, with clarity, and with absolute conviction. Your subconscious mind is always listening. It never sleeps. It never takes a holiday. It is the silent partner in your enterprise, and every word you whisper, every phrase you repeat is either building the fortification of faith or it is digging the grave of doubt. So I ask you, as the auditor of your own life, are you speaking power or are you speaking poison? Are you reinforcing the courage of the titan or are you conditioning the cowardice of the drifter? Are you using your words to lift yourself toward the sun or to bury yourself in the soot of the valley? Faith is not a loud or flashy thing. It does not beg for the attention of the crowd. True faith is silent, grounded, and steady as a foundation of granite. It is built in the dark. It is built when you show up to your task despite your feelings, despite your fatigue, and despite the lack of applause. It is built when no one is looking and you move toward your aim anyway. That is how the great leaders of history governed their nations. They weren't always the loudest in the room, but they believed in their vision so completely that no critic could shake it loose. When faith becomes unshakable, action becomes automatic. You no longer try to rise, you simply rise as a matter of law. You no longer wonder if you are ready. You move because the engine is already in motion. Your results begin to multiply, not by chance, but by design. This is the instruction I give to every man who seeks to enter the industrial priesthood. Write your chief aim in clear, bold letters. Read it aloud every morning and every night. Do not read it like a shopping list. Read it with emotion. Read it with certainty. Read it with the fire of a man who knows his destiny is written in steel. Visualize the outcome, not once, not twice, but as a daily religious practice. Speak your identity not as a wish, but as a settled fact. I am focused. I am disciplined. I act with purpose. I do not flinch. This is not theory. This is the practice of the masters. And when you practice it long enough, the man you used to be, the man of doubt, the man of fear, the man of hesitation, he fades into the dust of history, and the man of faith rises, not someday, today. There comes a moment in every man's life where he must make a decision so final, so absolute, and so violent that there is no path left for retreat. That moment is not about emotion, it is about industrial commitment.
In the history of conquest, there is a legend of the general who landed his troops on a foreign shore and then ordered his men to burn the ships. He removed the option of retreat. He made it so that the only way home was through victory. You must burn the bridges to your old self. You must remove all exits, all plan Bs, and all the quiet excuses that whisper in the back of your mind, if this doesn't work, I can always go back to safety. No, you cannot. Not anymore, because that man is dead. You cannot build a new life while clinging to the wreckage of the old one. You cannot become a titan and still hold space for the bobbin boy you used to be. You cannot win with your eyes fixed upon the rearview mirror. Charles Schwab did not become the president of Carnegie Steel by playing it safe. He was not necessarily the most brilliant technician in the mill, but he was the most decided. He carried himself like a leader long before the world saw fit to give him the title. He aligned his speech, his tone, and his energy with his desired position.
He closed the door to mediocrity and locked it from the inside. When he walked into a room, the air itself felt the weight of his decision. If you want that kind of presence, you must decide so fully that your past self is stunned into silence. This is what it means to burn the bridge. It is strategic warfare. When you remove the option to quit, you activate a part of your mind that the average man never touches. It is the part of the brain that must win because it has no other choice for survival. I demanded this of my managers. I did not want men who were interested in success. I wanted men with one single, burning obsession. A divided mind is a defeated mind. You cannot serve two identities. One must be cast into the furnace to provide the heat for the other. This means you must remove every distraction, every excuse, and every person who keeps you small. If you say you want to rise, then you must remove the staircase that leads back down. If you want to become unrecognizable, then stop keeping souvenirs from the man you used to be. Delete the contacts that drain your focus. Clear your space of the things that reinforce your old lazy habits. Stop visiting the mental corners where doubt still lives. Destroy the comfort you used to retreat to, for comfort is a liar. It says you are fine where you are, but greatness has never lived in the house of comfort. Greatness begins the moment you close the back door and walk forward with fire in your eyes. This is what Henry Ford did when he bet his entire reputation and every dollar he owned on the assembly line. He didn't ask for the world's permission. He didn't try to convince the skeptics over a long dinner. He decided, and in that decision, he removed failure as a possibility. People laughed, but he did not hear them. A man who has burned his ships does not have the luxury of entertaining doubt. He is too busy executing the mission. Listen to me carefully. You will be tempted more than once to look back. You will think about how easy it was to be lazy, to scroll through the trivialities of the day, to sleep in, and to live without the pressure of an empire. That voice will sound reasonable. It will offer you balance. It will tell you it's okay to relax just this once. That voice is the final ghost of your old identity. Kill it. Do not entertain it. Do not respond to it. Do not explain yourself to it. Replace it every time it whispers. When it says, take a break, you speak louder. I act from decision, not from feeling. I move because I chose this path, not because it is easy, but because it is mine. This is how you harden your will. This is how you train your subconscious to believe that your word is law. Your actions are not suggestions, they are commands. This is where the edge is formed. You no longer need motivation to move. You move because there is no ground left behind you. You move because the only direction is forward. Thomas Edison didn't hope for a breakthrough. He worked like a man with no alternative. 10,000 attempts, and not once did he consider the path of retreat. Adopt that same mindset. Burn the plan B. Eliminate the what-ifs. Live as if this is the only shot you have, because in the economy of your life, it is. The clock does not pause. The world does not wait for the hesitant. You have flirted with greatness long enough. Now is the time to marry the mission, fully, finally, and without hesitation. Because once the bridge is gone and the fire rises behind you, there is no turning back. Only evolution, only triumph, only the law.
No man rises alone. No man becomes truly powerful by staying in the isolation of his own thoughts. While it is true that discipline is forged in the solitude of the soul, and while it is true that the furnace of ambition must be lit by your own hand, the acceleration of wealth is born in alignment. There is a force more powerful than willpower, more potent than individual skill, and more enduring than lonely ambition. It is the power of the mastermind. It begins with an industrial truth that most men ignore at their own peril.
You become an exact reflection of the minds you consistently align with. Your thoughts are shaped by your circle. Your energy is influenced by your environment. Your identity is forged in the company you keep. You may believe you are strong enough to carry your mission alone. You may believe your will is a mountain of iron. But look around you. Truly, look. Who do you share your time with? Who do you allow to shape your vision during the casual hours of the day? Who do you speak to most? Because those voices are either building your empire or they are sabotaging your foundation. The mastermind is not merely a group of friends or a casual association of colleagues. It is a mental alliance. It is a convergence of aligned minds moving with a shared, definite intention. It is a spiritual and psychological law that states when two or more minds coordinate in a spirit of perfect harmony for the attainment of a definite purpose, they create a third mind, a force that is greater than the sum of its parts. This is the secret of the Titans. It is how we moved mountains of ore and built cities of steel. We did not do it by the strength of our own hands alone. We did it by organizing the minds of men into a singular, unstoppable current of action. You must seek this alliance, or you must build it from the ground up. You must find men who speak with the clarity of a bell, men who move with the purpose of a locomotive, men who understand what silence means, and men who do not need to be reminded of the mission because they live it in every fiber of their being. When you connect your mind to others moving with the same fire, something miraculous happens in the mechanics of your life. You become faster, you become stronger, you become more focused. You multiply your energy by the number of minds in your circle. You collapse the timelines of success. You begin to unlock ideas and industrial hunches that you never would have seen in the isolation of your own study. The mastermind brings perspective where there was once a blind spot. It brings heat where there was once a cold engine. This is not a theory born of the classroom. It is the same strategy used by every great builder in human history. Henry Ford did not build his empire in a vacuum of solitude. He surrounded himself with thinkers, with engineers, and with men of unshakable belief who pushed the boundaries of the possible. They did not always agree in the trivialities, but they aligned in the purpose. They pushed each other. They challenged each other into higher forms of execution. Thomas Edison did not sit alone in a dark room. He had a mental network of collaboration, a laboratory where ideas passed between minds like an electric current, each one sharpened through shared obsession. And I, Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest minds ever to walk the earth, I attribute my fortune not to luck, not to some secret gift, and not even to the capital I possessed. I attribute it to the power of the mastermind. I possessed a goal, and I reinforced that goal with a group of minds united in the spirit of harmony. I found men like Charles Schwab who understood that alignment with a high vision was the only daily environment worth inhabiting. The mastermind does not happen by accident. It is created carefully, deliberately, and with the cold precision of an engineer. But let us be clear, not everyone around you qualifies for the inner circle. A mastermind does not include the drifter. It does not include people who speak with the slag of doubt. It does not include those who gossip about the small things, those who chase the cradle of comfort, or those who mock the rigors of discipline. You must remove these influences from your mental atmosphere immediately and without apology. A single weak mind in your circle can dilute the fire you are building. It can act as a leak in your steam pipe, draining your pressure until you are stationary. Protecting your energy is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of industrial strategy. If a man does not feed your vision, he bleeds it. If he does not mirror your commitment, he distracts you from it. If he cannot see the future you are building, he has no place in its foundation.
Let me give you a rule that I lived by in the mills. If you would not trade places with a man's life, do not take advice from his voice. You are not obligated to carry the weight of other men's confusion. You are here to build something different, something sharper, clearer, and higher. You form your mastermind by choice. You start with one aligned mind, one voice that sharpens your own, one man who speaks clarity over chaos. Then you add another and another until your circle becomes a system, a structure, a support so tight and so aligned that failure becomes a mathematical impossibility. You must meet with this group. You must speak with purpose. You must share your aims. You must hold each other to a standard that the world would call extreme. You must eliminate the soft language of the mediocre. You must banish the words maybe, someday, or I'll try. You replace them with declarations. You replace them with accountability. You replace them with fire. And if you cannot find this circle yet, then you must be the standard. You must speak with such authority and move with such conviction that others of like mind are drawn to you like iron filings to a magnet. Do not chase approval from the weak. Do not try to convert those who are committed to drifting. Just build, just move, just live in alignment with the law. Those meant to walk with you will appear when your own vibration is steady enough to attract them. This is not about community for the sake of comfort. It is about alignment for the sake of power. When a mind as sharp as yours joins with another of equal fire, the very laws of success begin to bend in your direction. The path gets clearer, the results get faster, the noise of the world gets quieter. This is the hidden power of the mastermind, the power to multiply your mission. Before the action, before the money, and before the momentum, there must be belief. No man ever accomplished anything of greatness without first seeing it in its entirety in the workshop of his mind. You must believe long before the world gives you permission to act. You must believe long before the crowd applauds your efforts. You must believe long before the evidence shows up in your bank account or your ledger. That is the true test of the Titan. Can you act as if it is already real while it is still invisible to the physical eye? This is what separates the few who rise to the summit from the many who quit in the foothills. Understand this. Faith is not a luxury. It is not an optional mindset reserved for the optimistic or the dreamers. Faith is an industrial requirement. It is the foundation, the beginning of all transformation. You may think you need clarity to begin. You do not. You may think you need resources. You do not. You may think you need support. You do not. What you need is a decision backed by belief. The kind of belief that is felt in your chest, the kind that moves your feet when they are heavy, the kind that speaks louder than doubt, even when your voice shakes. Abraham Lincoln did not know how the war would end. He did not have certainty in every strategy or every general, but he had faith in principle. He had faith that freedom must win, even if the road cost everything he had to give. Henry Ford had no map, no established market, and no approval from the experts, but he believed so deeply in his vision that the world eventually bent to his certainty. Thomas Edison did not sit alone in a dark room. He had a mental network of collaboration, a laboratory where ideas passed between minds like an electric current, each one sharpened through shared obsession.
That is what faith does. It precedes the results. But fear does the opposite. Fear says, I'll wait until I see proof. Faith says, I'll move and then I'll make the proof appear. Which voice do you obey? Fear waits. Fear scrolls. Fear calculates every risk and forgets every reward. Faith builds. Faith acts. Faith believes and moves anyway. If you think this is just positive thinking, you profoundly misunderstand the laws that govern your mind. Your subconscious does not respond to what is objectively true. It responds to what is repeated. It responds to what is felt. It responds to what is believed. If you repeat fear, your life becomes a pattern of protection and shrinking. If you repeat belief, your life becomes a pattern of creation and expansion. That is why autosuggestion is so vital. That is why you don't just hear the words, you speak them, you feel them, you emotionalize them into your subconscious until they become your very identity. You don't just say, I believe, you say, I act with faith. I do not wait to feel ready. I know who I am becoming and I move accordingly. This is how belief is installed. Every day you speak your vision, every evening you reflect on your actions, every hour you refuse to betray the man you said you were becoming. Watch what happens. The fear doesn't vanish, but your faith gets louder. The doubt doesn't disappear, but your decisions override it, until eventually your belief becomes undeniable, and so do you. This is not mysticism. This is not fantasy. This is the industrial reality of how every empire begins, with an invisible vision believed in so deeply, repeated so often, and acted on so boldly that the world eventually has no choice but to see it too. Choose your belief now. Choose what you will repeat, because you are always programming your mind. The only question is, with what? Let your faith become your foundation, and let your daily actions prove it to the world. There is one trait that separates the builders of history from those who remain in hesitation: decisiveness, the ability to choose and never retreat. You do not drift your way to greatness, you decide your way there. One decision repeated without apology becomes the dividing line. Indecision is the breeding ground of fear. The longer you wait to choose, the louder the doubt becomes. A man who delays decays. Every time you hesitate, you make room for second guessing. You make room for outside opinion. You make room for fear disguised as logic. Train yourself to decide fast and change your mind slowly. That is the habit of the elite. Henry Ford was not a man who asked for permission. He did not poll the crowd. When he made a decision, it was final, forged in fire. Even when his own engineers told him the impossible, he told them, build it anyway. And they did, because his decision was stronger than their doubt. Charles Schwab rose in the steel empire because he was decisive. He didn't dance around responsibility. He moved. He understood the pressure of command. Your life works the same way. Until you decide who you are, the world will keep assigning roles for you. It will offer you scripts. It will offer you distractions. But when you decide, truly decide, the world has no choice but to rearrange itself around that choice. Decision creates identity. Indecision preserves the old weak self. If you keep drifting back to old habits, it is because you have not yet decided to leave them behind. Draw the line today. Say it out loud. I no longer delay. I no longer drift. I no longer entertain versions of me that hesitate. You say it, you write it, you live it. Because the truth is this: most men are not waiting on opportunity. They are waiting on permission to decide. But I tell you now, no one is coming to give it to you. The greats didn't wait, they chose. So choose with spine, choose with fire, choose with finality. And from that moment forward, you become unshakable.
There is a secret embedded in the very foundation of every great fortune. It is not luck. It is not timing. It is not the charm of the charismatic. It is the habit of doing more than one is paid to do. This law, the law of compensation, governs advancement in the industrial world just as gravity governs the motion of the planets. It does not discriminate. It does not miss. It does not forget a single stroke of the hammer. It simply returns to each man the value he contributes, multiplied over time by the hand of infinite intelligence. And here is the truth that the average man will never understand. You are not paid for your time. You are paid for your value. And value is determined by one thing: how far you are willing to go beyond what is expected of you. The average man performs at the level of his paycheck. He looks at the clock, he looks at the wage, and he does exactly enough to keep his seat. But the Titan, the exceptional man, he performs at the level of his potential. He does not wait to be rewarded before he acts. He becomes so effective, so consistent, and so deeply valuable that the reward becomes an industrial necessity. This is the law, and it cannot be faked, and it cannot be bypassed by the cleverness of the idle. Charles Schwab rose from the humble beginnings of a stake driver, not because he had a superior education, but because he had a superior attitude toward labor. He became indispensable by making himself irreplaceable. He gave his mind, he gave his energy, he gave more than he was paid for in every single hour of his day. And because of that, because he obeyed the law of compensation, I eventually paid him a salary higher than any other man in the history of the steel industry. He did not ask for the money chased the value he had already created. I too practiced this principle with a devotion that borders on the spiritual. When I began my career as a bobbin boy and a telegraph messenger, I did not work the hours of a boy, I worked the hours of a master. I took on greater challenges. I volunteered for responsibilities that were outside my title and far beyond my pay. I did not do it for the recognition of my superiors. I did it for the growth of my own faculty. And that growth, that expansion of my own ability, positioned me for every opportunity that the universe eventually placed in my path. This is how the climb begins. You do not get promoted by asking for more. You get promoted by becoming too valuable to ignore. Understand this: the marketplace is a cold auditor. It pays for impact, not for intention. It does not care how long you meant to work. It does not care how busy you felt. It only measures the result. And those results are multiplied for the man who consistently goes the extra mile. That is where you must live, in the extra mile, the unpaid hour, the unseen effort, the quiet improvement of the soul. Here is the secret that no one in the cradle of ease talks about. The extra mile is the emptiest mile on the road. That is why it is the only place where the power lives. Everyone wants to get ahead, but few are willing to give more than they are asked. Few wake up before the sun without being told. Few deliver excellence when average is accepted by the crowd. Few take ownership of mistakes that weren't even theirs. But the few who do, they rise with the inevitability of the tide. Thomas Edison did not stop when the world said he had done enough. He worked relentlessly, not to clock hours, but to produce value. He held over 1,000 patents. Why? Because he focused not on the reward, but on the output. He knew that if the output was great enough, the reward was a foregone conclusion. This is why you must detach your spirit from the immediate return. If you only act when you are rewarded, you will forever be a slave to the permission of others. But if you act from principle, if you act from the law itself, you become independent of your circumstances. You act not for the applause of the audience, but because you are the kind of man who does more than is required as a matter of character. Over time, the world always catches up to the man of value. Henry Ford didn't invent the car, he revolutionized the process of service. He built something better, faster, and more accessible. He didn't stop at good enough. He pushed the boundaries of efficiency. He over-delivered to the customer, and because of that, the market was compelled to follow him. Success is not reserved for the lucky. It is earned by the man who outserves, out-improves, and outlasts his competition. That is the operating system you must install, not just in your business, but in your home, in your discipline, and in your secret mission. When you do more than expected, you become more than expected. You grow in stature, you gain self-respect, You earn the influence that money cannot buy. And most importantly, you rise above the competition without ever needing to destroy anyone else, because you are in a class of your own. So here is your industrial challenge. Where can you over-deliver today? What extra detail in your work can you improve? What skill can you sharpen without being prompted? What task can you complete better than the master himself expects? Once you have the answer, you do it, not once, but daily, until excellence becomes your habit and your name becomes associated with the certainty of execution. In the economy of life, the highest currency is certainty. The man who always delivers, even when no one is watching, becomes the man who is always called upon when the stakes are highest. If you want to advance, if you want to rise, if you want to build a reputation that makes opportunity chase you down the street, then stop asking for more and start giving more. Quietly, relentlessly, with no need for immediate credit. Compensation will come, recognition will come, but only if you build yourself into the kind of man who no longer needs it to keep moving.
Now, let us speak of the pleasing personality. You may have the strength of an ox. You may have the intelligence of a scholar. You may have the most brilliant industrial plan in the world, but if your presence repels others, if your energy repels trust, if your manner of speech pushes people away instead of drawing them near, then your power will never reach its full expression. No man rises alone, and the man who knows how to influence others with warmth, confidence, and clarity will always move 10 times faster than the man who tries to force everything by brute strength. This is what we call a pleasing personality. It is not manipulation. It is not the hollow charm of the salesman. It is a cultivated energy. It is a vibration that magnetizes others without begging for their attention. It is the invisible factor behind the most successful men in history, the quality that opens the heavy doors of the boardroom and earns the undying loyalty of the workforce. Understand this. A pleasing personality is not a gift you are born with. It is a discipline. It is a product of self-awareness, emotional control, and intentional practice. I built one of the greatest fortunes in history, not because I was the loudest man in the mill, but because I knew how to make others feel seen. I listened more than I spoke. I praised more than I criticized. I mastered the art of influence through presence. That presence made others want to work with me. It drew power toward me like a magnet draws iron. Charles Schwab was famous for this. Though he was not a technical genius of the furnace, he became the president of the steel empire because of how he made people feel. He smiled with his whole soul. He remembered the names of the laborers. He made others feel important. And through that, he got the best out of his team without ever needing to raise his voice. Power is not just force. Power is the ability to move others willingly. You must refine yourself into someone whose presence communicates, "This man is worth following." This does not mean becoming a performer. It means mastering the quiet disciplines of the self. Your tone of voice. Speak with conviction, not with the slouch of hesitation. Your facial expression. A calm, confident presence speaks before you ever utter a word. Your genuine interest. People remember how you made them feel. Ask real questions. Listen deeply. The world is full of loud, bitter, argumentative men trying to prove their worth, but the Titan doesn't argue. He doesn't shout. He doesn't over-explain. He influences. He persuades. He builds bridges where others burn them. Thomas Edison understood the value of a magnetic environment. His laboratories weren't just centers of invention, they were environments charged with positive expectancy. That is what a pleasing personality creates, movement without resistance. If you want to be powerful, you must become likable. Not because you seek approval, but because you understand the law.
People move faster for men they admire. When you speak with respect, others give you respect. When you walk with presence, others feel it. When you remove the need to prove yourself, you gain the ability to persuade. And persuasion can move mountains of steel. Ask yourself, do people feel stronger after speaking with me? Do I carry myself with calm authority or chaotic energy? Because the most powerful man in the room is never the one who talks the most. It is the one whom others listen to when he finally speaks. Abraham Lincoln is remembered as a giant not because he dominated others, but because he combined firmness with humility. He communicated with a simplicity and a presence that gave the people confidence during their darkest hour. Henry Ford, for all his brilliance, valued those who could communicate ideas with calm strength. Consistency in presence creates trust. So, here is your challenge. Speak less, and when you do speak, speak with intention. Smile more, not as a mask, but as a message that you are in command of your energy. Move slowly, speak clearly, make others feel seen. Live your life in such a way that your presence makes others want to be better. That is the highest form of influence. The man who uplifts everyone around him without effort, simply by being who he has decided to be. Say this aloud. My presence is calm, powerful, and persuasive. I make others feel seen and heard. I do not argue, I influence. My energy is magnetic, and my authority is quiet. Let those words take root in the furnace of your mind.
There is a law, one so powerful, so consistent, and so mathematically certain that those who live by its dictates are destined to rise to the very summit of human achievement, while those who violate it are sentenced to a life of eternal mediocrity and silent regret. It is not written in the shifting sands of the earth, nor is it taught in the crowded schools of the masses. It is the law of increasing returns. It states, with the cold, impartial authority of a master ledger, that the man who habitually does more than he is paid for will soon be paid for far more than he does. Let that truth echo through the high chambers of your mind until it becomes your primary operating system. It is not a motivational phrase meant to provide a moment of fleeting comfort. It is an economic, spiritual, and industrial reality that governs the flow of gold and the building of empires. The average man, the contractual laborer who watches the clock with a weary eye, says, "I will give more when I am given more." He waits for the world to reward him, to acknowledge him, and to pay him before he even considers increasing his output. He is a man of trading and haggling, always trying to get the best of the bargain by giving the least of himself. But the builder, the man who commands his own destiny and speaks to the world in the language of power, says, "I will give more now, and I will let the law of the universe find the rewards later." And they always do. The universe is a perfect bookkeeper. It never forgets a debt of service, and it never fails to pay interest on a deposit of excellence. I recall with absolute clarity my early days as a boy in the telegraph office. I was a weaver's son, a bobbin boy, a messenger with nothing but the clothes on my back and a fire in my spirit. I was not asked to memorize the Morse code by ear while the office was silent. I was not required to learn every rail route and every switching station in the state of Pennsylvania. I was not paid to understand the hidden mechanics of the iron business or the subtle flow of capital, but I did it. I stayed after the whistle had blown. I cleaned the machines when others were at the tavern. I went beyond the instruction. I went beyond the bare minimum. I went far beyond what any man would call duty. And what happened? The people in power, the men who held the keys to the kingdom, they noticed. Not instantly, for the law of compensation requires a season to refine its fruit, but inevitably. From that small, dusty, noisy post, I rose to become the iron master of the world. Why? Because I gave value first, without asking for a guarantee,
without keeping a petty score of my hours, and without the demand for immediate payment. The man who goes the extra mile makes himself irreplaceable in an economy of replaceable men. While others are performing the duty, he is delivering the result. While others are asking, what am I owed for these 8 hours? He is asking, what else can I build to ensure the permanence of this enterprise? Life does not pay you based on the movement of the hands on a clock. The clock is a tool for the servant, a measure for the wage slave. Life pays you based on the value you contribute to the marketplace of human needs. Your time means nothing to the world if it produces little, but your initiative, your refusal to cut corners, your willingness to stay at the furnace when your body is screaming for rest, that makes you unstoppable. It creates a credit in the great ledger of life that must, by law, be paid back with interest. Consider the mechanical nature of your own mind. It is like a high-pressure boiler. If you only put in enough coal to keep the needle at the minimum, you will never have the power to pull a heavy load up the mountain. You will be a switch engine, moving small cars in a small yard. But if you stoke the fire, if you go the extra mile even when no one is watching the gauge, you build up a head of steam that can move an entire nation of industry. Thomas Edison understood this well. His work ethic was not a burst of energy that faded with the sunset. It was a legendary rhythmic endurance that lasted for decades. He did not seek 1,000 patents. He sought 1,000 solutions through tens of thousands of failed experiments. He worked through the night, sleeping on the floor of his laboratory, not because he was paid to do so, but because he was obsessed with the value he was creating. He didn't demand a guarantee of wealth before he started his work. He gave everything first, and only after the light illuminated the dark corners of the world did the rewards follow in a torrential flood of gold and fame. He became a creditor to the human race, and the world had to pay him back. Are you doing the minimum? Are you only rising when the master's eye is upon you? Are you only moving when it is convenient for your comfort or when the fear of poverty stings your heels? The universe keeps a perfect score, not of your hours, not of your busyness, but of your initiative. The world might not reward you this morning, it might not reward you this week, but it will reward you eventually and far beyond what you can currently imagine if you make this law your very identity. It is a psychological law that you cannot give more than you receive forever. Eventually, the balance must shift, and when it shifts, it does so with the force of a landslide.
Start exactly where you are. If you work a job, stop asking what your role is and start asking what your standard is. If you are building a business, stop asking what clients will pay for and start asking what would leave them in absolute awe of your service. If you are building a skill, do not just check the box of completion. Stay longer, push deeper, and stretch further than any man has dared before you. Every time you exceed the expectation, every time you cross that invisible line of enough and keep going, you separate yourself from the pack. You become unforgettable. You become trusted. You become the man whom others turn to when the crisis hits. Charles M. Schwab was not promoted to the head of the United States Steel Corporation because he did his job. He was promoted because he multiplied the value of every man around him. He encouraged the laborers. He pushed the engineers. He asked, how can we improve the flow of the metal? He went above the standard of his office, not for the sake of empty attention, but because it was the only way he knew how to live. That is what you must become. The man who gives more than is asked, more than is expected, and more than is required by the contract. And the key, the true industrial secret, is to do it when no one sees it. Do it in the dark of your own study. Do it when the world is asleep. Do it until it is your very nature. That identity becomes a magnet for every opportunity in the world. Now, listen to me with the intensity of a man whose life depends upon the message. Watching this once is not enough. You cannot rewire a lifetime of contractual thinking in a single sitting.
You cannot kill a decade of fear and bare minimum habits with one round of inspiration. You cannot erase the old brittle programming of the drifter with a single exposure to the truth of the titan. Your subconscious mind does not respond to one-time information. It is a creature of repetition. To imprint a new belief upon the soul, you must burn it in, again and again, until it becomes more familiar than your own name and more powerful than your deepest doubts. Repetition is the language of the subconscious, and the strongest loop always wins the day. If your old loop is, "I am just a worker," it will dominate your bank account and your life until a stronger, louder, and more authoritative loop replaces it. If the dominant signal in your heart is hesitation or the desire for safety, that will be the boundary of your empire. But if you feed your mind day after day, hour after hour, with the vibration of power, with the certainty of the Iron Master, then the old voice loses its volume. It doesn't leave by force. It leaves because it can no longer survive in the frequency you have established. Auto-suggestion is not an option for the seeker of wealth. It is the mechanism of the master. It is the tool by which you reprogram who you are at the core of your being. You must play this again. You must speak the lines aloud. You must memorize the phrases that strike your soul like a hammer on cold steel. You must let this message become your mental software. You do not listen for entertainment. You listen for installation. You are not here to feel better. You are here to become unrecognizable to your past self. I want you to understand the mechanics of the habit. When you repeat a thought of power, you are carving a channel in the gray matter of your brain. The first time you do it, it is a faint scratch, but the 100th time, it is a groove. The 1000th time, it is a canyon. Eventually, your thoughts of success and value will flow through that canyon with the force of a river, and you will find it impossible to think like a failure. You will find it impossible to give only the minimum. Your very nature will compel you to go the extra mile, and therefore the law of increasing returns will be compelled to work in your favor. Close your eyes and say this to your deeper self with the authority of an owner. I am not afraid. I act without hesitation. I am focused. I am certain. I am becoming the man the law of wealth requires me to be. Do you feel the shift in your nervous system? That is not imagination. That is neural reinforcement. That is your identity being updated in the internal ledger. Now multiply that by 90 days of persistent rhythmic repetition. You say it once, it is a spark that may go out. You say it every night for 90 days, it becomes a circuit of iron. You speak it until it becomes your baseline, your default, your unshakable reality. What you feed forms you. What you repeat becomes you. What you dwell upon, you create. Do not let this message fade into the background noise of a busy day. Treat it like a ritual of the high priesthood. Treat it like a sacred commission. Build your morning around the law of the extra mile. Build your evening around the command of the Titan. If someone asks why you listen to the same truth again and again, tell them this: because I am not here to be entertained by new things. I am here to be rebuilt by the eternal things. Your mind is programmable. It always has been. Since the day you were born, the world has been writing its code of safety, fear, and just enough upon your spirit. The only question is, who is writing the code now? From this moment forward, you are the chief programmer. You are the master mechanic of your own soul. Every time you repeat a thought of power, you weaken a thought of fear. Every time you affirm the psychology of the surplus, you starve the psychology of the deficit. Success is not a moment in time that happens by luck. It is a rhythm of the mind. It is the result of a mind that has been tuned to the frequency of achievement through relentless, rhythmic repetition of the law. I did not become the man I am by wishing for it once. I did not build the mills by dreaming on a single Sunday afternoon. I became Carnegie by commanding my mind 10,000 times a day, through every panic, through every strike, through every setback, until the world had no choice but to follow the command of my spirit. I repeated my purpose until my purpose and my person were one and the same. Tonight, let the law of increasing returns govern your rest. Let your subconscious work on the extra mile while your body recovers its strength. Imagine your value increasing in the eyes of the market. Imagine your influence expanding across the continent of your industry. Imagine your energy becoming magnetic to the capital you require. You are the owner of your own mind. You are the architect of your own character. You are the master of the forge. The morning whistle will blow, and you will rise not as a drifter who hopes for a wage, but as a producer who commands a fortune. You will rise with the fire of the extra mile in your spirit. You will rise with the certainty of the law in your heart. You will rise as a titan of the new age. The law does not fail. The ledger must balance. Your value must be returned to you. This is the gospel. This is the steel. This is the way.
We have traveled from the heat of the furnace to the cold precision of the ledger. We have fueled the boiler, aligned the mastermind, and rehearsed the law of the extra mile. But now we come to the final seal. We must speak of the law that binds all other laws together. It is the law of cosmic habit force. Most men believe that their life is a series of disconnected choices. They believe they wake up each morning and decide their fate. But the Iron Master knows better. He knows that the universe and every man within it is governed by rhythm. The planets move in a rhythm. The seasons change in a rhythm. And your life, your wealth, your health, and your spirit is the result of the rhythm you have established in your subconscious mind. Habit is the great automator. It is the invisible servant that takes the commands of the day and turns them into the destiny of the year. If you have been a drifter, it is because you have established a rhythm of drift. If you have been a pauper, it is because you have practiced the rhythm of the deficit. But tonight, as we close this industrial apprenticeship, we are breaking the old rhythm and installing the rhythm of the Titan. We are using the law of cosmic habit force to make your success as inevitable as the rising of the sun. Understand this final synthesis. Everything you have heard in these 90 minutes, every principle of faith, every decree of purpose, every law of compensation must now be woven into the fabric of your character through persistent habit. You do not become a master by a single act of bravery. You become a master by the fixed habit of being a master. You must reach the point where it is harder for you to be lazy than it is to be productive. You must reach the point where doubt feels like a foreign object in your mind, an impurity that is instantly cast out by the internal governor of your soul. I recall the consolidation of the great steelworks. People thought it was a matter of luck or timing, but it was the result of a rhythm of consolidation that I had practiced for 30 years. I had trained my mind to see unity where others saw division. I had trained my mind to see expansion where others saw panic. By the time the great transaction occurred, my mind was so set in the habit of triumph that the external world had no choice but to manifest that triumph. The subconscious mind, your internal bookkeeper, is now holding the blueprint of your new life. But you must protect that blueprint during the coming days. The world will try to scrawl its doubts across your plans. The mediocre will try to spill the ink of their criticism upon your goals. You must stand at the gate of your mind with the authority of an armed guard. You must say to every thought that approaches, "Does this serve my definite purpose? Does this align with the gospel of success? If not, you have no entry here." As you move forward from this hour, you must practice the industrial law of silence. Most men talk away their energy.
They leak their power by telling everyone their plans before the iron is even hot. They seek the hollow applause of their neighbors to validate their dreams. But the Titan works in silence. He lets his results do the talking. He keeps his fire contained within the boiler, where it can build the pressure required to move the heavy loads of industry. Do not speak of what you are going to do. Show the world what you have done. The law of cosmic habit force is now taking the words you have repeated and turning them into neural iron. You are becoming the type of person who is uncomfortably disciplined. You are becoming the type of person who sees an obstacle and smiles, because you know the obstacle is simply the raw ore of your next opportunity. You are becoming the man who is magnetized to capital. You no longer chase money. You provide the value that compels money to seek you out. Let us finalize your internal constitution. Say these words into the silence of your spirit, for they are the final entries in the ledger of this apprenticeship. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I have burned the bridges to my past weakness. I have installed the rhythm of the Titan. My word is law. My action is absolute. My purpose is definite. I am a man of the surplus. I give more than is expected, and I receive more than I can imagine. The law of compensation is working in my favor. The law of cosmic habit force is automating my success. I am steel. I am iron. I am the law. You are now being tempered. Like the finest steel, you have been through the fire of this discourse. You have been hammered by the truths of the masters. You have been quenched in the silence of deep thought. You are now ready to be put to use. You are ready to build the bridges. You are ready to lay the rails. You are ready to command the men. The bobbin boy is gone. The messenger has delivered his final report. The manager has been promoted. And you are now the owner. You own your mind. You own your time. You own your destiny. I leave you with this final charge. Go forth and build. Not for the sake of the gold alone, for gold is but a byproduct of the mind, but for the sake of the great creative work. Build libraries for the spirit. Build industries for the race. Build a character that will stand as a monument long after your flesh has returned to the earth. The morning whistle is about to blow. The sun is rising over the mills of the future. You have the blueprint. You have the fuel. You have the law. I am Andrew Carnegie. I am the Iron Master, and this is my gospel.